So Esther, thank you so much
Yes,
for making time to
absolutely.
to share your insights and share your journey. Thank you.
No, my pleasure.
But before we launch into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
So I'm actually born and raised in Nairobi, Kenya. I grew up in Nairobi, and I moved to South Africa many moons ago. I came to study. I actually came to the University of Pretoria where I studied my undergraduate in BCom informatics. And then during my my first year, actually, it was my first year of university, I got the privilege and an opportunity to intern at the United Nations in Nairobi. Um, and that's really where I got my first sort of, hands-on work experience, particularly around data. I was working for the Shared Support Services department at the time. And then from there, I got an internship as a business intelligence analyst. And then the rest was history. Because of those opportunities, I was able to secure employment in South Africa. So I stayed and also started a family. My husband is South African, so I call South Africa home now.
Right. And can you tell us, Esther, what was
Yes.
your dream career when you grew up?
That's a very good question. Funny story. My father is a flight engineer, so he has a huge love for technology and he has a huge love for um um particularly around computers. So in the 80s, he had this computer called Spectrum Sinclair. It was one
Uh-huh.
of those it was the first home computer. And in order to use it, you had to program what you wanted to use it for before you could use it. Not like today's PCs where you switch it on and it already works. In those days, you literally had to program it in first before you can use it. And I used to find that so fascinating. And that was where I realized I'm definitely getting into technology ever since I first saw him use it. I think I was about 5 years old. Um, so I knew from then that I wanted to get into technology. I wanted to get into either computer science or something to do with IT. So growing up, I knew it was all about tech. And however, when I got into university and now, I was exposed to all of these different courses and all of these different degrees that I could do. Informatics just became something that I found very interesting because it was about how do you bring people, process, technology together to solve problems for businesses and solve problems for people. And I have such a passion for people that I thought, wow, okay, I can now bring in technology and people together. And that's how I got into informatics and chose that path.
And Esther, can you tell us who inspired you in your early days? Or maybe what inspired
Yes.
you?
What inspired me in my early days. I think with everybody in every, stage in life, you get inspired by different things, different people. I, in when I grew up, I grew up with with good parents, very supportive parents. So my parents inspired me, particularly my mother. My mother was a sort of woman that had no fear. She was very fearless. And she just taught us that, you could be anything that you want to be when you grow up. And because my parents only had girls, we didn't grow up in a household where there was a difference between what a boy versus a girl should do. So we were very much exposed to just being kids and exposed to different things. And that was so my parents are can say my first love, the first people that inspired me and shaped who I am today. Then my older sister, who's an oral surgeon, in Nairobi at the moment. very smart woman, very determined woman. She also inspires me to be better, do better. And the other people that inspire me in my life is I could say like Wangari Maathai.
Yeah.
She's the first Nobel Prize winner, woman, African woman Nobel Prize winner.
Right.
And she was just a force. And just seeing her do what she did and overcome all those obstacles, physically being, abused and attacked. And she had a goal, and that goal was around climate change. And she's planted the most trees ever. And so she's very inspiring to me as well as a female. And then I think the other people growing up was also just seeing all of these, the likes of Bill Gates, and all of these technology founders, because it was just interesting that they could take something that they built on a PC and make it into this huge empire where, almost everybody is using Microsoft, or everybody's using Apple, everybody's using a phone. It's insane to me that where they could, a lot of these people started off either in their rooms or in the back of their garages, or, there's all of these stories that you hear. So those stories are also inspiring. So I can go on and on. I mean, there's so many people, I think, but those are the people that come to mind.
Now, Esther, today you are the data and analytics chief data and analytics officer at Sasfin.
Yes.
You earned a number of awards, right?
Yes.
CDO of the Year, Global Data Power Woman, Gartner Peer Community Ambassador, and so on. Looking
Yeah.
back over your career, would you say there was a turning point where things could have gone different?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I think what I can say is yes and no. I think I know we don't have too much time, but I'm going to give you three sort of moments that I think really shaped me and could have taken me to very different, completely different paths.
Mhm.
I remember when I was, trying to get promoted, and it was during my performance review where my manager said to me that I was not getting the promotion, and I asked her why, and she said, no, it's because we believe that you are not able to handle tough conversations. And I was taken aback, and I wondered, why would you think that I wouldn't have tough conversations? And she says, no, no, this is what we believe, and the partners and the other senior leaders believe so. And then I remembered I accepted it and I walked away, and I had a meeting with a mentor of mine who happened to be a guy, and he was a no-nonsense, very straightforward type of person. And I gave him the story, and he said to me, Esther, why did you accept that notion? Do you agree with the sentiments that you were given? And I said no. And he says, well, so why did you accept it? And I thought to myself, no, it's because I respect my boss, and I trusted her word. And he said to me, do you believe that you cannot have difficult conversations? And I said, no, I believe I can. So why did you choose to take it? And he said, do you perhaps misconstrue obedience with respect?
Mm.
And I was like, wow, okay, I hadn't thought about it that way. So, growing up in Africa, particularly, you're told to obey or respect your elders, but some of us tend to misconstrue that as obedience. You must obey them. So because my boss at the time was older and I deemed my elder, I just obeyed what she told me. So when I went back to her and I said to her, look, I don't think that I'm not accepting this sentiment and this notion. I would like to know specifically with which particular moments have I shown that I'm not able to have difficult conversations. So she went back to the partners and the senior leaders, and she came back and said, Esther, you are right. Nobody could give specific moments. It was all based on perception. And because of your soft-spokenness and your personality, the perception was that you were not able to be a manager and hold difficult conversations. And because I had, I was brave enough to have that conversation. 6 months later, I got my promotion. And then 6 months after that, I got another promotion. And I realized that, the importance of, number one, having mentors. I think having mentors is important. And that was one point. The other thing is the power of unlearning, right? I realized that I learned to I learned that I had certain biases within myself that were, through my conditioning and just my 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 upbringing. It created a hindrance, right? I was
Right.
becoming my own sort of blocker. So I came to unlearn. I became self-aware and I started to unlearn those beliefs. And by unlearning those beliefs, it opened up a world for me that I didn't think I could acquire into. The other turning point for me was, I think, doing as a consultant, as a consultant for most of my career, and that meant dealing with different types of people and different types of clients. And I remember having a client that was so abusive that um, people even, there was a whole thing where they wanted to um, get me out of that particular environment because people thought that I was being abused by this client, verbal abusive in the sense that the client was the sort of person that would call people stupid and idiots, and it wasn't a very nice environment. But what I came to realize is when I would ask the client a question, he would say, "You're such an idiot. How can you not know the answer?" But he'd still give me the answer.
Mm.
And the minute I realized that it's not about me, um, and him saying I'm stupid, I'm not gonna take it. I'm not gonna believe it. At the
Mm.
end of the day, he can call me names, but I got my answer, right? And that's the moment I realized it came to realize that I'm stronger than I thought. And because of that journey, the client ended up trusting me with a 30 million rand project to
Wow.
run. So, um, because he realized, she's tough. She can take
Uh-huh.
my name calling and take my personality, and I didn't take it personally. So that was also a turning point. And so there's many moments, but those are the things that come to mind. And the other thing that comes to mind is just being authentically myself. I all of these awards and accolades to me, I didn't think personally that I could get them, to be honest. I thought that there's so many people that are in the industry that are more worth the awards and the accolades. But through coaching, through mentorship, people challenging me to speak because they thought I have something to share, I then got the confidence to go out and share my journey and my thoughts and um, my leadership journey and the knowledge that I have around data and analytics. And I got so surprised where people started to say to me that what I'm telling them it makes a lot of sense and it's adding value to their world and their organizations. And I think then that's has built up my confidence to not only um, also get into also the league of being a mentor as well. But also it validates that I know what I'm doing, because sometimes when you in this world in people, in careers and being in the professional world, sometimes you don't know whether you're doing the right thing or what you're doing. So this is just a way of validating that. So I really appreciate it. It's something that I don't take for granted at all.
And Esther, what would you say is driving you today?
Um, what's driving me today? Um, that's a good question. I think that I have such a passion for data, and the reason why I do is because I don't think there's any problem data cannot solve. I honestly do. I think that with every problem, there's an element of data, whether you want to be digitally transformed, whether we want to solve climate change, we want to solve world hunger. There's nothing you can't do by using the power of data, to solve that problem. I mean, even in healthcare, they're using data, they're using information to be able to solve problems. So what drives me is that data solves problems, and I love solving problems. And then I have a passion for people. So I want to solve problems for people. So I want to be able to solve problems for, the minority, the people, the unheard, the unknowns, the people that are unseen. So
Yeah.
I really want to, through my journey, through finding, fulfilling my purpose is really around helping people.
Thank you. Now, Esther, looking into the
Yes.
future, and I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
Um, that's a very good question. I'm actually speaking on this topic next week at a conference, and it's such a tricky topic because I might say something very debatable, but I don't think everyone should be a leader of people or others. I don't think, we live in a society where there's a notion that to to earn a certain level of status, power, and authority, you need to be in a leadership position and you need to lead others. And I think that's a misconception. I believe leadership is about leading self first before you can lead others. And when you lead others, you have to lead others with empathy. Leading people is about being empathetic. I mean, if you think about what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, that's where leaders really got challenged because a lot of leaders found it difficult to be able to lead people in that environment, and people going through what people were going through. People were getting sick, people were losing their jobs, people were having family members they needed to take care of. It was a really hard time. But the leaders that really, I think, that won, that succeeded, were the ones that led with empathy, right? So I think today or tomorrow, especially with the new emerging technology and AI coming into place, we have to lead with empathy, because at the end of the day, it's at the end of the day, it's about people. Everything we do is about people, really. There's nothing in this world. I mean, we live in it. It's about how we as people thrive in this planet. So I think empathy is important. We have to lead. The future of leadership has to also be open to innovation and diversity of thinking. I am a true believer that you cannot lead, in a I could say in a box. You have to make sure you surround yourselves with diverse type of people and thinking. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to innovate. And the world is all about innovation and making sure that you're able to keep up with the trends and keep up with what's happening. And if you try and stay in your bubble and trying to remain in the state, the traditional way of doing things, and uh, I believe you're gonna fail, right? And there's nothing wrong with traditional ways of doing things. It's about how do you take those, you know, um, good good strategies and good things and successful ways of doing things, and aligning that with new things. And to do that, you have to be open-minded. Yeah.
And Esther, looking back over your
Yes.
own leadership journey and the way that you've risen through the ranks, in
Mm-hmm.
your opinion, what does it take to build future leaders? What is it we have to do more to encourage, to empower future leaders?
I think we have to lead by example, right? I think leading by example in my mind, and that's worked for me, is um, I I I see myself as part of a team. I don't see myself as the leader of the team. right? We're all leaders in one way or another. So I lead in encouraging and creating a culture and embracing a culture of leadership of everybody is a leader in their own way, whether it's a leader in a particular expertise, or you're a leader in being the best project manager. It doesn't matter. Everybody leads in something. And so for me, that was worked. And also just embracing a culture of, failing fast, learning fast type of approach. We love to joke around. We play hard and work hard as well. So it's about embracing failure, right? It's about embracing the failure and understanding the learnings and not punishing failure and not creating a fear to fail. I don't think you can innovate without taking risks. I don't think you can innovate without failing a couple of times. So it's important that you create a culture that embraces failure. So we have what we call Joker of the Week, where we get together and just talk about all of the things the mistakes that we've made, and also just celebrating our achievements, no matter how small. I think we're living in a world, we have these macroeconomic factors. It's hard. We're dealing with load shedding. We're dealing with high interest rates. We're dealing with, high unemployment. So sometimes even the smallest of achievements, we have to take time to recognize and celebrate, because then, because life is for the living, right? So it's about embracing and learning from the mistakes, trying not to make sure we don't do them again or make those mistakes again, but also celebrating every single success that we have.
Now, Esther, these are challenging times as
Yes,
the world is stumbling from one crisis to the next.
correct.
What is your advice for future leaders in terms of challenges? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter and overcome in their career?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think that in the world of data and analytics, I think there's a huge fear for AI. There's a
Yeah,
huge fear about AI and what AI can bring. And there's a fear that with artificial intelligence, certain, skills will not be needed in the future. So that what that brings is people resisting. There's a huge resistance to change. You're having lots of organizations who are, without really trying to understand what, like with generative AI, what that is going to, bring, what benefit it could bring to the organization. They're just stopping it before, let's just stop, right? Let's not use it, let's cut it, let's resist it. So I think for me, the advice I'd give future leaders is with all of these, I could say, new emerging technologies and you're right by saying crisis is how do you balance, like I said, empathy, and how do you balance technology to enable you to be out of these crises better. So take, like I said, pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. At Sasfin, we were ready. I mean, when they said lockdown from tomorrow, everybody must work from home,
yeah.
because of the technology and the practices and the solutions we had already put in place. Working from home was like as simple as switching on your laptop. You're already in the network. People already had Wi-Fi or had like ways of connecting to the office. So it was seamless. So it's also just being not it's there's a balance between always being in this proactive mode around what do we need to prepare for and be ready for, but versus what do we need to do to make sure that we're meeting today's objectives. So there's a balance. So I always say that it's important to also take a risk-based approach, right? So it's understanding what are the risks that exists particularly right now, the risks for us in data and analytics is scarcity in skills. There's a huge global scarcity of data skills. So what's happening, especially in South Africa, is people are just throwing money at the problem, especially the big poor corporates. So
Mhm.
you're finding that organizations, smaller organizations, are not able to pay those humongous, unrealistic salaries because of that. So I think for me, the idea is not to try and solve for the immediate problem for today, but how do we solve it for tomorrow? So I think as leaders, we need to take that approach is how do we solve for today, but also how are we going to solve for the risks that could, scarcity of skills. I think we need to think, take a different approach. How do we make sure that we get more and more? I mean, South Africa has a huge unemployment rate. How are we still having scarcity of skills and at the same time there's a huge unemployment
Yeah,
rate? There's a disconnect. So we need to figure out how we can maybe partner with the education department. How do we create more innovation hubs? How do we encourage people at high school level to choose data related courses in university? Because what is happening is that we are going to universities to try and convince people who've already chosen their courses to come into data. Actually, we should be going into the high schools because in university it's too late. It's about how do we create that awareness from the roots where it really matters. How do we engage and create awareness even with parents to encourage their children where they can see certain skills that align with what future skills are looking like. So I think there's so much we can do, but it's a balance.
absolutely.
Mm.
Now, Esther, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a
Sure.
success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
Good question. Geez, there's so many examples uh I can give.
Yeah.
I think there's the one I can think of. Let me see. There's so many. Yes, there's one person who's been going through something personally challenging. She actually has an autistic child, and her focus has always been on her child and her work. And through, our mentorship relationship, I encouraged her because I thought she had so much potential to be more um than just, getting up in the morning and coming to work and just doing what is she's obligated to do. I thought she has so much to give to society and also to the data industry. And because of that, she had the courage to now speak on not only her data knowledge, but also be a speaker and speaking on autism and creating awareness for autism, because there's a huge misconception around what autism is, especially in the African culture. And I'm so proud of her because she didn't think that she could do it, right? The other one is I had a mentee that I mentored since she was a graduate, and now she's head of a department. So that's also amazing, is seeing her from being a graduate all the way to head of department. And I remember in our mentorship journey, she said, when I grow up in 10 years time, in 20 years time, I'd love to be like you. And I said, but why 10 years? Why not in 2 years? Why not in 3 years?
Yeah.
What's stopping you from achieving more than I am, right? It's not about doing what I'm doing. You have to forge your own path. And your path could be you exceeding my journey. So, and through that process, she ended up becoming a head of department in about 6, 7 years, from graduate to head of
Okay.
department. So very proud of her.
Now, Esther, looking back over your career, are there any role models of leadership that you have encountered and maybe worked with that you would
Yeah.
recommend future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you should definitely speak to my immediate boss. He's the CIO of Sasfin.
Yeah.
He is a huge I think he's a huge role model for me. He's studied both medicine and engineering. So I think it's someone you might want to pick your brain on.
Yeah.
He's recently got nominated for CIO of the year as well.
Right.
I'm hoping he gets it, but yeah, so he's someone I think he has a world of knowledge. He's the sort of person that reads, you know, um, what do you call it? He sits and reads physics books for fun,
Okay.
on his downtime. So he has a world of knowledge, but he's also very much he cares about people, and that's what I resonate with him on a lot. And he's willing to listen to anybody that knocks on his door. So I think he's definitely a person of interest. I think you've also probably, I don't know if you've interviewed Nolly.
Yes, I
Um,
have. I have.
you've interviewed Nolly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nolly is also a huge role model for me.
Yeah.
Geez, is this a specific just to South Africa, or it can be outside as
No,
well?
globally.
Globally.
Yeah.
I think the other person that I really I I look up to is Jordan Moreau. I don't know if you know Jordan Moreau. He's
No.
written through 3 books around data analytics and data literacy. Very, very, very good guy and very learned person. The other one is Mike Bugambi. He's a Forbes writer,
Yeah.
columnist, and speaker. And he's I cannot I can listen to his podcasts and his talks for hours. Like, he's brilliant, and such a good storyteller. I think he's definitely a person of interest for me. Um, have you talked to Hartnell Dongo?
Not yet.
He's the CDO for APSA in Kenya. He's
Okay.
also brilliant. Brilliant mind. There's Chandria, forget her last name, but she's a deputy CDO for the American US Army.
Yeah.
She's also brilliant. Love listening to her. And then there's so many. Like, I can go on and
Sure.
on and on. And she also recently was with me, 40 under 40 world leaders, data leaders. She's also in the global 100s women list under data. Chandria. Um, who else? Kutlwano. I don't know if you know.
I've seen her on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes, yes. She recently also won data analytics. She won the data analytics leader award
Yeah.
at the DataCon early in the year.
Right.
And she's also nominated with me for data analytics leader um at the Datalytics event next week. So she's also really good.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Esther,
Yes.
how can our listeners reach out to you and how can they
Um,
connect to you?
my preference is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn. I'm Esther Munyi, and you can find me on LinkedIn if you just type Esther Munyi. Um, I'm really bad at reading messages because I get hundreds, but bear with me. I will respond eventually. Um, the other way you can reach out to me is also through my Gmail account. It's Esther Munyi, one word, @gmail.com. So if you want to directly email me.
Right. And last but not least, Esther, what is your message for the millions of learners out there who are about to finish school looking to enter the world of work, what are maybe one or two success principles they should keep in mind?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, the first thing I'm going to say is that I think I think knowledge is power, right? So I want them to know that it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say it's going to be okay. It's going to be easy. It's not easy.
Yeah,
But knowing that it's not easy is good because then that knowledge prepares you mentally and emotionally to deal with what's going to come. So it's important to understand that it's not easy, it's hard work, and understanding that is important. The principles I believe in is three things. One is learning. Learning, never stop learning.
right.
There's nobody who knows everything. Learning is always important. And learning is about being curious. Find the things that interest you
Yeah,
and just always sustain that curiosity to always learn more and understand. Don't always take things at face value. I always tell my team that if you pick up a task and you don't know why you're doing it and
yeah,
what the expectation is for that task to be delivered, don't pick it up. First step is to understand. Is to
right,
understand the why before you do the how, right? The unlearning is important. Unlearning means it's good to introspect and also ask your peers, ask your trusted advisors, ask the people around you, what are your shortcomings? What are the areas that you need to improve? What are the blind spots? And then I'm not saying take every single person's word as the Bible or as true. Do still take the comments with a pinch of salt, but it's important to understand what your blind spots are because you need to unlearn the things that are holding you back and then
right.
fill and when you unlearn, relearn and relearn the right things. And then the last thing is just stay authentic. Always stay true to who you are because there's no one else like you, right? There's
Right.
no one else like me. And who I am is what makes me unique, and uniqueness is what creates that diversity that is needed for innovation. When when I hire people, I do not want to hire clones of myself or clones of other people. So I want to find people that are different from me. So that means you have to embrace your difference. You have to embrace your authentic self and stand your ground and around principles. I think that, I find the people that you associate with from a value system or from a principle perspective. There's no point in me trying to find people who are exactly like me in terms of the work that I do, um, because there's probably no learning. So it's important to find people, different people, so you can learn from them, but find people that have the same value as you, meaning for me, it's integrity, and those kind of things.
Well,
That's what
Esther,
I could say.
Esther, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership and for leading us by example.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nick. And thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.